You won't believe what I've been hiding for 5 years. Emily Jackson's heart raced as she picked up the phone. The voice on the other end was familiar, but it was filled with shock and anger. Emily, I found out. You have to tell me the truth. I know about the triplets. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Ryan. Her ex-husband, the father of her children, had discovered her secret. She'd kept it buried for 5 long years, hoping the past would stay in the past, but now the truth was out. Her mind raced back to when it all began. 5 years ago, their marriage fell apart. Emily had been devastated, but she had made a decision that would change her life forever. After the divorce, she knew it was time to start fresh, but that didn't mean her heart was healed. She was left to raise their 3 newborn triplets on her own. Ryan had no idea. They had never told him. She couldn't risk it. She couldn't let him think that he was trapped in something that he didn't want. She couldn't drag him back into her life when everything had already fallen apart. So she kept it a secret. For 5 years, Emily had raised their children alone, watching them grow in love without ever telling them about their father. The kids were perfect. They were Ryan's, but they didn't know him. He had no idea they existed. She'd done everything she could to keep them safe, to protect them from the pain that might come if they ever knew the truth. But now, 5 years later, the truth had found its way to Ryan. His voice cracked as he continued, Emily, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me a chance to be their father? The words stung. She had her reasons, but they felt weak now. The pain, the guilt, it was all too much. She hadn't wanted to hurt him. She hadn't wanted him to feel trapped. But now, standing on the other side of this conversation, Emily wondered if she had made the right choice. Could they ever go back? Could they raise their children together as a family? Or was it too late? Emily tried to speak, but the words didn't come. How do you explain a decision like this to someone you've already hurt once before? She had never meant to hurt him again, but here they were. Ryan's silence was deafening. He was processing, trying to figure out what to do with this revelation. She could hear the frustration in his voice as he continued. I don't even know them. I don't know my own kids. Emily could feel the weight of his words, heavy and suffocating. For 5 years she'd kept this secret, and now it was out. There was no going back. She had to face him. She had to face their children's future, and the future of a family that had been broken for far too long. Emily sat frozen on the edge of her couch, the phone still pressed to her ear. Ryan's words echoed in her mind, but they seemed distant, unreal. I don't even know them. I don't know my own kids. The weight of his voice felt like a 1,000-pound burden. She'd always feared this day would come, but never imagined it would be like this, raw, painful, and filled with so much unspoken emotion. The triplets, her perfect little miracles, had never known their father. And now Ryan had just discovered that they existed. The silence on the other end of the line stretched, heavy and thick, as Emily struggled to collect her thoughts. She wanted to explain. She wanted to tell him everything. But where would she even begin? Ryan, she said, her voice shaky, barely a whisper. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought it would be better this way. She could feel the tears start to sting her eyes. It wasn't just about protecting herself anymore. It was about protecting her children. The secret had always been hers to bear. She'd carried it for 5 years alone. Her decision to keep their paternity a secret hadn't been easy. She'd known that one day, Ryan would have to know the truth. But she hadn't been ready to face that moment. Not yet. Not when everything she had worked so hard to build could come crashing down. Better. Ryan's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. You thought it would be better to keep them away from me? Emily flinched, the guilt gnawing at her heart. I didn't want to trap you, Ryan, she said, the words tumbling out. You were already so hurt when we got divorced. I didn't want to bring this into your life. I didn't want you to feel like you had to be a part of something you didn't want. Her throat tightened, but she pushed through. I thought if I kept them to myself, kept everything quiet, it would be easier for everyone. For you, for me, for the kids. I was wrong. The truth hung in the air between them, suffocating and overwhelming. Ryan's silence stretched again, and Emily could feel the weight of his emotions radiating through the phone. She didn't know what he was thinking. She didn't know how he felt, but she could hear the hurt in his voice, and it broke her. I don't know what to say, he finally muttered. I don't know. The line went quiet once more, and Emily closed her eyes, letting the tears fall freely now. She hadn't expected forgiveness. She didn't even know if it was possible. But she did know that this secret had created a barrier between them that couldn't be erased overnight. For 5 years she had protected the triplets, raised them with love, and never once told them about their father. She had watched them grow up, their laughter filling the house, their faces lighting up whenever they reached a new milestone. They were perfect in every way, and in those moments, Emily had felt like she had everything she needed. But now, with Ryan back in the picture, everything was changing. Could they still have a future as a family? Could Ryan step into the role of a father, or was it too late for that? Emily didn't know, but as the silence stretched on, she realized there was no turning back. The truth was out, and there was no hiding from it anymore. The silence between Emily and Ryan hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Emily wiped her eyes, trying to steady herself, trying to find the words to fix what seemed so broken. Ryan had remained quiet for what felt like an eternity, and all Emily could hear was the faint sound of his breathing on the other end of the line. She didn't know if he was angry, confused, or just in shock. She couldn't read him anymore. "I need to see them," Ryan finally spoke, his voice softer, but the pain was still there. It was a statement, not a question. Emily's heart dropped. She had always known this moment would come, the moment when Ryan would want to be a part of their children's lives. But she never imagined it would feel like this. It felt like a tidal wave crashing over her, threatening to pull her under. "Ryan," she whispered. "They've never known you. They've never had you in their lives." Her voice shook as she spoke. "They're just kids. They're my kids, and I've kept them safe all this time. I don't know how to just let them go." Ryan's voice cut through the tension. "I'm not asking you to let them go. I just want to meet them. I need to know them, Emily. I have a right to know my own children." The words stung, but Emily knew they were true. He did have a right. She had kept them from him, and no matter how much she had tried to protect him and protect them, the truth was undeniable. She had kept them apart, and now Ryan was demanding the right to be a part of their lives. "I don't know how to do this," Emily confessed, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to make this work. We've been apart for so long, Ryan. You don't know anything about them. You don't know who they are or what they need." Ryan was silent again. The truth was that Emily didn't know how to balance everything that had happened. She had built a life for her children without Ryan, and now everything was changing. What if he tried to come back into their lives and it wasn't what they expected? What if it hurt them more than it helped? Emily could feel the fear creeping in. "I'm not trying to disrupt their lives, Emily," Ryan said gently. "I'm not trying to be their father overnight. I just want to be a part of their lives. I want to be there for them, for all the years I missed." The sincerity in his voice made her pause. Emily had never doubted that Ryan loved her at one point, but this was different. He wasn't just asking to be with her anymore. He was asking to be with their children. The triplets, their 3 little miracles, had never known their father. They had never asked about him. Emily had always kept that part of their history away from them. She had tried to protect them, but now she had to face the reality of what was best for them. Could Ryan really be a part of their lives? Or was this just a dream? Emily didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed. "I'll bring them to you," Emily said quietly. "But I need time. I need to make sure they're ready." Ryan didn't answer immediately, but Emily could hear his relief in the silence that followed. She had agreed. She had taken the first step. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the only way forward. The journey ahead was uncertain. Emily didn't know if Ryan could really step into the role of a father for their children, or if this was just the beginning of even more challenges. But one thing was clear. The past 5 years of keeping secrets had come to an end. The truth was out, and now they all had to face it together. Emily felt the weight of the decision press down on her as she hung up the phone. She had agreed to bring the triplets to Ryan, but the fear in her chest was almost suffocating. Could she really introduce them to their father after all this time? What if things didn't go as planned? What if they didn't accept him? What if Ryan couldn't step into the role she had kept him from for so long? The more she thought about it, the more overwhelmed she became. The children, her precious little ones, had never even asked about their father. She had kept that part of their lives in the shadows, away from them, away from Ryan. Now it was all out in the open. And Emily wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. "Mommy, who were you talking to?" Emily's youngest, Lily, tugged at her shirt, her innocent eyes full of curiosity. Emily smiled weakly, bending down to pick her up. "Just someone from the past, sweetheart," she said softly. "We're going to see him soon. He's your father's friend." Lily's face lit up with confusion, but she didn't push. Emily knew she was going to have to tell them eventually, but right now it felt like the hardest thing she'd ever done. The next morning, Emily drove to Ryan's apartment, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The triplets were in the back seat, laughing and talking amongst themselves, unaware of the massive shift that was about to happen in their lives. As they pulled up to Ryan's building, Emily's stomach churned with anxiety. The moment of truth was here. She took a deep breath before opening the door and helping the kids out of the car. They stood at the entrance, unsure of what to expect. Emily turned to them, her voice soft. "Okay, guys, there's someone very special we're going to meet today. His name is Ryan, and he's someone I used to know." The kids stared at her, wide-eyed and confused. Emily smiled, trying to reassure them. "Don't worry, you're going to like him." As they walked up to the door, Emily knocked. Her heart was pounding in her chest. She could feel the anxiety rising in her throat as the door swung open. Ryan stood there, looking a little different than she remembered. His face, though older, still had that familiar warmth that Emily once loved. But now it was tinged with uncertainty. The two of them stood in silence for a moment, the years apart evident in the air between them. "Emily," Ryan finally spoke, his voice low. "I'm so glad you're here. And these must be..." He looked down at the children, his gaze softening as his eyes met theirs. "My kids." Emily nodded, her heart heavy. The moment she had feared had arrived. Ryan was here, and now the triplets had to meet the man who was their father. The kids didn't understand the weight of the moment, but Emily did. This was the beginning of something new, something neither of them could control. Ryan crouched down to their level, his eyes warm and inviting. "Hey there, I'm Ryan. It's really nice to meet you." The triplets looked up at him, unsure of what to do. But Lily, ever the brave one, took a step forward, her small hand reaching out toward Ryan. "Hi," she said shyly. Ryan smiled and gently took her hand. "It's nice to meet you too." Emily watched the interaction with a mixture of hope and fear. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter for them all? Could Ryan truly become a part of their lives after so long? The children seemed to relax slightly, but Emily knew this was just the beginning of a much longer journey. Ryan was finally here, but the road ahead was uncertain. There were so many questions, so many things that needed to be figured out. Emily wasn't sure if she was ready for all of this. But one thing was clear. They had taken the first step. Now there was no turning back. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty for Emily. She watched Ryan try to bond with the triplets, his every move filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. It wasn't easy. The kids were still unsure about him, unsure about the man who had been absent from their lives for so long. They had always had Emily, just Emily. She had been both mother and father, guiding them through the ups and downs of life, never once mentioning their father. Now Ryan was here, and the triplets had to adjust to a new reality, a reality that was still so new and foreign to them. Ryan tried his best. He brought them small gifts, things they might like, but nothing seemed to break the wall they had built around themselves. They were polite but distant. Emily could see the hurt in Ryan's eyes each time one of the kids would pull away from him or avoid eye contact. He had so much love to give, but it felt like it wasn't enough. "It's going to take time," Emily would say to him after each failed attempt at bonding. "You can't expect them to just open up right away." Ryan nodded, but Emily could see the doubt in his eyes. He wanted so much to be a part of their lives, to be a father to them, but he wasn't sure if he was even allowed to be. After 5 years of silence, how could he expect the triplets to just accept him as their father? It wasn't going to be easy. It was going to take patience. Days turned into weeks and Ryan's efforts continued, but there was still a distance between him and the kids. Emily found herself caught in the middle, trying to balance her past with Ryan and her present with her children. She had promised herself that she would do whatever it took to protect the triplets, but now she was beginning to wonder if this was the right path. Was it really better for them to have Ryan in their lives? Would it only bring more confusion and heartache? Emily didn't know the answer, but she knew she had to try. She had to give the kids the chance to know their father, even if it was hard, even if it felt like the hardest thing she had ever done. One evening, after another quiet dinner with Ryan and the kids, Emily sat down in the living room. The children were in bed, and Ryan was sitting beside her, looking at her with those familiar eyes. "I don't know if I'm doing this right, Emily," Ryan admitted, his voice filled with frustration. I don't know how to fix this. I feel like I'm failing." Emily placed a hand on his, offering a reassuring smile. "You're not failing. You just need time. We all do." Ryan looked at her, a hint of hope flickering in his eyes. "But what if they never accept me? What if they can't see me as their father?" Emily sighed, looking down at their joined hands. "They will," she said softly, "but it's going to take time. You've been out of their lives for so long and they're just kids. They're scared, but they'll get there. You just need to be patient." Ryan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." Emily turned to him, her eyes filled with understanding. "You are. You just have to trust the process. We both have to." It wasn't easy. Nothing about this situation was easy, but Emily knew that it was the right thing to do. The triplets needed their father. They needed to know him even if it took time. Ryan needed to be there even if it felt like it wasn't working. It wasn't about instant results. It was about building something that would last, something that could heal all the hurt and the time lost. As Emily sat next to Ryan, she realized that this was just the beginning of a long journey. It wasn't going to be perfect, but it was their journey. And for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. She didn't know what the future held, but maybe, just maybe, it could be a future they could all share. Emily woke up early the next morning, the sun barely rising, casting a soft, golden light over the house. She could hear the sound of the triplets already awake, their laughter echoing through the hallway. It had been a week since they had met Ryan, and though things were still awkward, there were small moments of progress. Ryan had been coming over more often, trying to find ways to connect with the kids. Would they even want to spend time with him? To her surprise, the triplets eagerly nodded and ran to grab their shoes. As they sat down for dinner, Emily watched the kids as they interacted with Ryan. Lily, always the bold one, was now asking him more questions. "Ryan, do you like to play soccer?" she asked between bites of her food. Ryan smiled, his eyes lighting up at the chance to connect with her. "I do. I used to play a lot when I was younger. Maybe I can teach you how to kick a ball someday." Lily grinned, clearly excited by the idea. "Can we play tomorrow?" she asked eagerly. Ryan nodded. "Sure thing, Lily. Tomorrow sounds perfect." Emily smiled to herself. It was moments like this, simple small moments, that filled her with a quiet sense of relief. The triplets were starting to feel comfortable around Ryan. There was still a long road ahead, but they were making progress. As the days passed, Emily noticed Ryan becoming more and more involved with the kids. He would help with homework, play games, and even help with bedtime stories. But the one thing that was still a bit awkward was the absence of any real affection. The kids had not yet called him Dad, and Emily hadn't pushed them to. She knew it would take time. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Ryan and Emily sat together on the couch. The house was quiet, the only sound being the ticking of the clock on the wall. "I didn't think it would be this hard," Ryan said, his voice soft. Emily turned to him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. "I know," she replied. "It's been a long time. But you're doing great. They're opening up to you, Ryan. That's more than I could have hoped for." Ryan sighed and leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. "I just feel like I'm always on the outside. Like I'll never really be their dad." Emily placed a hand on his. "It takes time. You're already their father, Ryan. You just have to be patient. They need to see you in their lives, and they need to see that you're here to stay." Ryan looked at her, his gaze filled with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "I hope you're right. I don't want to mess this up. I just want to be a part of their lives." Emily squeezed his hand. "You're doing everything right. Just keep being there for them. They'll come around. They just need time." The conversation lingered in the air, and Emily could feel the weight of everything they had been through. It hadn't been easy, Nothing about this situation was easy, but she had to admit that things were improving. It wasn't perfect and there was still so much more work to be done, but there was a quiet optimism in the air. Ryan wasn't giving up and neither was she. They were both in this together and no matter how long it took, they were going to build something strong, something real. The next day, as Emily watched Ryan play soccer with the kids in the yard, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The triplets were laughing and kicking the ball back and forth with him. There was no hesitation, no walls between them. They were a family in the making. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like the future wasn't as uncertain as it once seemed. The road ahead might still be long, but with each passing day, they were one step closer to the family they had always hoped to be. Emily smiled to herself, watching the scene unfold before her. The future was no longer something to fear. It was something to look forward to. As the weeks passed, Emily began to see more signs of progress. The triplets were growing more comfortable with Ryan. They still hesitated at times, still unsure of how to fully accept him into their lives, but the walls between them were slowly starting to crumble. Emily had watched them laugh together, share stories, and even argue over who got the last cookie. All the little things that made a family. Ryan had been patient, so patient, and Emily had to admit that he was doing everything right. But there were still moments when she questioned herself. Was she making the right choice by allowing Ryan into their lives? Could the triplets handle the sudden change? One evening after the kids had gone to bed, Emily and Ryan sat on the porch sipping their coffee. The night air was cool, and the stars sparkled above them. It felt peaceful, but beneath the surface, Emily could still feel the tension. She had been trying to ignore it, but the fear of the unknown still lingered. "Do you think they're ready for this?" she asked softly, her eyes focused on the stars. Ryan turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "I think they're getting there," he said. "But it's going to take time, Emily. I know it's not easy for them." Emily nodded. "It's not easy for me either. I've spent so long trying to protect them, trying to keep everything stable. And now with you in the picture, it feels like everything is changing." Ryan reached over and took her hand. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'm not trying to take over their lives. I just want to be there for them, to be the father they need." Emily looked at him, the weight of his words sinking in. She knew he meant it, but the reality of it still felt overwhelming. She had kept them apart for so long. Could she really let him be the father figure in their lives now? "I know you're trying, Ryan. I see that. But I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared of what might happen if we push them too fast. They're still so little. What if they don't accept you as their dad?" Ryan squeezed her hand, his voice steady. "I'm not expecting them to accept me right away. But I am here for the long haul. And I'm willing to take it slow, to let them get used to me in their own time." Emily took a deep breath, trying to calm the swirling thoughts in her mind. She wanted so badly to believe him, to trust that everything would work out. But the fear was still there, lurking just beneath the surface. "I want to believe that too," she said, her voice soft. "But I don't know how to let go of the fear. I don't know how to trust that this is really what's best for them." Ryan's gaze softened as he looked at her. "It's not about letting go of the fear, Emily. It's about moving forward with it. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to keep moving forward one step at a time." Emily nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. Maybe he was right. Maybe it didn't have to be perfect. Maybe they didn't have to have all the answers. As long as they kept moving forward, as long as they kept working together, they could figure it out. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being patient with me. With them." Ryan smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "I'm not going anywhere, Emily. We're in this together." The weight of her worries didn't disappear, but for the first time in a while, Emily felt like they were on the right path. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, and there would still be bumps along the way, but she was starting to believe that with time they could make this work. As she sat with Ryan watching the stars above, she realized that the future didn't have to be filled with fear. It could be filled with hope. And maybe that was all they really needed. Hope and the willingness to take the next step, no matter how uncertain the road ahead seemed. Months passed, and with each day, Emily felt like she was witnessing something extraordinary unfold before her eyes. The triplets were starting to accept Ryan in ways that she had once thought impossible. They were no longer hesitating as much, no longer keeping him at arm's length. They were laughing, playing, and even fighting with him just like they did with her. It was messy and beautiful all at once. Emily watched as Ryan got down on the floor with them to build a tower out of blocks, his concentration intense as he helped them balance the pieces. "You're doing it!" Lily cheered, clapping her hands in excitement. Ryan smiled at her, his eyes filled with genuine warmth. "We're doing it together," he corrected softly, his voice full of affection. Emily couldn't help but smile from the doorway, her heart swelling with pride. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The triplets finally seeing Ryan as a part of their world. They were building something that was real, something that could last. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments when the kids would pull back, when they would need space, but Emily could see the change. They were more comfortable with Ryan now. They were starting to trust him. And for Ryan, the change was just as profound. He had been patient, had been willing to take things slow, and now he was beginning to experience the joy of fatherhood. The bond was growing, and he wasn't giving up. One evening after dinner, Emily and Ryan were sitting together on the couch. The kids were in the other room playing a game. Ryan turned to Emily, his face thoughtful. "I never imagined it would be like this," he said quietly. "I always thought I missed my chance with them. But now I'm here. And I don't want to screw this up." Emily placed her hand on his, her touch reassuring. "You're doing great, Ryan. You're here. That's what matters most. You're here, and they're starting to see you as a part of their lives." Ryan smiled, but there was a hint of doubt still in his eyes. "I just hope they never forget me again," he said softly. Emily's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. "They won't," she said, her voice steady. "You're their dad now. That's never going to change." As the weeks turned into months, the family continued to grow stronger together. Ryan and Emily worked as a team, balancing the challenges of parenting and their past history. There were still bumps along the way, but they faced them together, always communicating, always working toward the same goal. Ryan had become a steady presence in the triplets' lives, and Emily was starting to see him not only as their father, but as someone she could rely on as well. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch, watching the kids run around the yard, Emily leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," she said, her voice full of wonder. Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with appreciation. "I don't think we're done yet," he said with a small smile. "But we're getting there." Emily nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. They had been through so much, and yet here they were stronger together. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt confident about the future. The fear and uncertainty that had once clouded her vision were fading, replaced with hope. The family they were building wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was enough. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. "For everything." Ryan reached out, taking her hand gently in his. "We're in this together," he said simply. And Emily knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. As she looked out at the triplets playing, her heart swelled with pride. This was what she had always wanted. This was the family they were meant to be.